Hello and welcome to Telegraph Studios. I'm Alistair Greener and today we're talking about business cyber risk management. And joining me are Louise Dunne and Jamal Elmellas from Auriga. Good morning.
Good morning, Alistair.
So we hear a lot about we're lagging behind when it comes to cyber security. Whose fault is it?
Well, we hear a lot in the industry today, unfortunately. The business leaders get blamed. In all honesty, it's us cyber specialists. We are seemingly, and some of us are not good at translating cyber into business language to the business leaders. And that's predominantly to do with knowledge. So
what's missing?
Well, I think having the ability to take a challenging environment like cyber, a technical environment in some cases, but not all cases, and translate that is what is missing from our cyber specialists.
Yeah, we struggle with understanding, or rather translating, cyber risk into business language in order to justify budget and justify control and shape that control mechanism in order to build an infrastructure that's secure against the threat. We're just not very good at doing it.
You talked about this knowledge gap. Whose responsibility is it to fill that gap or to bridge it?
Unfortunately, it's us. We need to better understand our existing business models. So we need to engage with the business, understand how our organisation works. We also need to make sure that we are dynamic in terms of understanding cyber risk. It's an ever-evolving. Without us keeping pace, we can't shape our controls.
So let's be optimistic for a second here and let's say that your initiative is successful. But you say that decision leaders are empowered, so they're going to ask you, well, why do I need a third party?
Well, Alistair, let's imagine that you own your own company and you manufacture sports rackets. That's what you know, that's what you're good at. That's what's going to need your attention, so not to distract you away from what you do. If you were to look at developing your own in-house organic skill set, it would take an understanding of how are we going to do this? How am I going to translate that into my corporate risk strategy? What personnel would I need? Where do I get them from? Who's going to be the recruitment? Who's going to train them? So if you've not got any in-house expertise, that training overhead is going to be quite vast. Once you've decided that this is your approach, this is the way we're going to do it, this is what we identify as our threats, these are the personnel that we believe we need. You've then got to bring them in, train them up on your business, train them up on the program that you want to deliver and implement. And the cost of that and the time of that is going to not only distract you and your colleagues away from your day-to-day business, which should be focused on driving the business forward, but also how do you know how to do a sanity check on what they are actually delivering is appropriate, is up to date, and is going to provide you the defence that you need. And that's when the third party comes in, because they are focused, they are undiluted, all they do is cyber on a day-to-day basis.
Hang on, did you say cyber? What do you mean by cyber?
So in this context, cyber risk management. So they are looking at the business to ensure that they are reducing the risk of threats being compromised.
Absolutely. The tradition has been for large organisations, blue chips, to create what's called a centre of excellence. We saw this approach gain pace in the 90s and 2000s. That takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of investment, and actually, you're still not bleeding edge. Your capability is still lagging behind the perpetrators because there's more of them. They're more capable. It's an ever-evolving threat, and you've got to maintain that evolution, that dynamic element. That takes a lot of time and money.
I want to come back to what you mentioned earlier on about skill sets. Can you be a bit more specific about those skill sets that only third parties have?
I think in some cases clients do have some of the skill sets, obviously, but they're not cyber focused. They're not bringing in decades of experience around cyber. The specific skill sets are the architect, the technical architect, the business analyst that is absolutely focused on and undiluted in cyber and risk management. the corporate strategists. So they tend to be the translators. They're the ones that are taking from the departments and the business leaders and heads of departments up to the boardroom. And then you'll have more of the culture and the soft skill side, focusing on the organic side within an organisation. All of those combined is what's needed, but it's most important is not having them all at the same time. So that's why clients tend to, or at least the ones that we work with, don't tend to have them internally, because we bring in the market experience and the skill set at the appropriate time.
Yeah, the issues that we have is that the cyber risk market is incredibly dynamic. It's ever evolving. So you have to have a capability, a protection mechanism that's equally as dynamic. Otherwise you remain static. If you take the UK economy, we've moved away from a manufacturing-based economy to a service-led infrastructure and economy. If we were to build our control mechanisms to fit a manufacturing-type business model and didn't evolve into a service-led, ICT-reliant based infrastructure, we would be still protecting ourselves against the wrong threats.
You've talked about knowledge, you've talked about skills. How do you go about then delivering this knowledge and skills to the businesses you work with?
Okay, with our clients, we've had success on focusing initially at board level. So making sure that cyber is incorporated into corporate strategy, into corporate risk management frameworks, which is really the secret of the success. So it actually becomes a overarching part of the business, not a standalone, which we see in market today. And then really focus that translation down to the business heads, whether that's operation, whether that's finance, whether that's whatever the direction of the company is going in. And that's where those skill sets come into their own to work together for the success.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons why we focus primarily on embedding our services within an organisation. Otherwise, you just become a silo, and you're not as effective. By embedding yourselves within the organisation and understanding the way the business works across the life cycle. So, if you make widgets and you sell widgets, we need to understand geographic locations, user types, infrastructure models. And once you understand that, you can then start to build a control landscape that's fit for purpose.
It all sounds great, but it is at the end of the day quite a gear change for organisations to go through to get their heads around this way of thinking when it comes to cyber risk management. Where do you see this going forward? What do you see the picture to look like in the future? What are the trends?
Well, we've still got a long way to go. We've seen a marked increase in what they call advanced persistent threats. The perpetrators are more advanced. The tools are more readily available. The bounty is greater because we now rely on ICT a huge amount, more than we ever have done. We just need to see the recent attacks that we've seen within Sony, within LinkedIn, etc., etc. The rewards are huge. So the investment is there now. Yeah. There was a tradition of basement hackers, or what we call script kiddies. That's no longer the case. This is invested by foreign intelligence, by organised crime. We have to make sure we are as equipped. We have to make sure that we invest equally as heavily and bleeding edge as our perpetrators, as our competition.
Yeah, and I think it's important to also understand that there is no silver bullet to this. There is no silver bullet to cyber or indeed risk management. The important thing is for organisations, no matter their size, is to choose a very pragmatic organisation that's very focused, undiluted, has the skill sets available to them to work together. And if that's achieved, success will be achieved.
Well, it's certainly been a fascinating perspective of cyber risk management. Louise Dunne, Jamal Elmellas from Auriga, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.